October 3rd, Padre Pio did something no one in the monastery ever dared to speak of again. Something that made even the witnesses fall to their knees in tears and silence. That line was whispered years later by Brother Pietro, who said he could no longer keep the secret. No one truly knows what happened inside Padre Pio's small cell that day. All that is known is that from that morning on, the air around San Giovanni Rotondo carried an unexplainable sacred stillness, as if heaven itself had visited. The monks spoke of hearing strange prayers echoing from Padre Pio's room, words not in Italian, not in Latin. The sound was soft yet powerful, like a voice suspended between heaven and earth. The door remained slightly open, but no one dared to enter, because they believed that Padre Pio wasn't just praying. He was meeting someone. Before dawn, Padre Pio rose earlier than usual. He knelt before the statue of the Sacred Heart of Jesus, holding his worn rosary, the beads polished by decades of tears and devotion. The flicker of a single candle lit his face, then, pale, but shining with a strange light. A young friar passing by later said, "I couldn't tell if that light came from the candle or from heaven itself." What shocked everyone most was what Padre Pio said just before sunrise. He asked to be alone and uttered only one sentence. "Today, I must meet him." But who was him? A saint, an angel, or Christ himself? No one knew, yet the words left an unsettling silence in the monastery. Even the wind seemed to stop, and the chapel bells refused to ring. Then, around mid-morning, something inexplicable happened. The monks began to smell the fragrance of roses, sweet and overwhelming, filling the corridors. It was the same scent Padre Pio always said marked the presence of saints. Some swore they saw a soft light moving behind the closed door, as if invisible hands were touching every shadow in the room. When Padre Pio finally opened the door, he said nothing. His eyes glistened with tears, and a faint smile curved his lips. One monk dared to ask, "Father, did you see someone?" Padre Pio nodded gently and whispered, "He came today." No one asked further, but from that day onward, Padre Pio was different. He prayed longer, deeper, and often entered a state of rapture that frightened even those closest to him. Sometimes he would look at the statue of the Virgin Mary and smile softly, as if he were conversing with someone unseen. Rumors spread that on October 3rd, Padre Pio had made a sacred covenant, not with men, but with a saint he had venerated his entire life. And that covenant, as many would later claim, was the beginning of miracles never recorded in any book about Padre Pio. Miracles that even the Church hesitated to speak of. They say some secrets are too sacred to speak of, and that Padre Pio carried one of them. After October 3rd, something about him changed. It wasn't just the look in his eyes or the calm in his voice. It was the atmosphere around him, as if heaven itself followed wherever he walked. Those who met his gaze said they felt their hearts tremble, as though they'd been seen through by something divine. The monks began to notice strange signs. Padre Pio spoke less but prayed longer. During his prayers, the wounds on his hands, the stigmata, would sometimes glisten with fresh blood. Yet he never showed pain. He would simply whisper, "These are the marks of love." One afternoon, as the golden light of sunset covered the monastery walls, a young friar came to deliver a letter to Padre Pio. While waiting outside his cell, he heard voices. One was clearly Padre Pio's, but the other was soft, pure, almost musical. He leaned closer, and his heart froze when he heard Padre Pio say, "You've come at last, Saint of the Lord." The door suddenly opened. Light spilled out, forcing the friar to step back. When he dared to look inside, he saw Padre Pio on his knees, tears gliding down his face, yet his expression was radiant with peace. No one else was in the room. No one. Rumors spread quickly. Some believed Padre Pio had been visited by Saint Francis of Assisi, who bore the same holy wounds. Others claimed it was Saint Therese of Lisieux, the one he often prayed to for strength in his suffering. Padre Pio never confirmed the story. He only said, "When heaven touches the earth, there is no need for words, only silence and faith." When people asked what happened on October 3rd, he simply smiled and replied, "If you knew what he told me, your heart would never doubt again." Those words haunted everyone who heard them. What message had he received? What secret had been entrusted to him? One evening, as Padre Pio prayed the rosary, a young monk asked softly, "Father, if I truly long to see a saint, is it possible?" Padre Pio looked at him with a gaze that seemed to pierce through time itself. "If you pray with all your heart, the saints will come to you. But be ready, for they never come without changing your life." The candle flickered. A faint scent of roses filled the air, that same heavenly fragrance that always preceded miracles. From then on, many believed Padre Pio was being guided, not by vision, but by presence. He was said to receive messages during his sleep, to be led by unseen hands during prayer, and whenever he touched the sick, healing followed. The blind saw, the mute spoke. Yet Padre Pio would only say, "It is not direct, it is him through me." If you're still watching and something inside you feels moved, perhaps that's no coincidence, tap like or leave a comment saying, "I believe in miracles," because sometimes faith itself is what invites heaven to act. But none of the friars could have imagined that, just a few nights later, Padre Pio would take out a small, worn notebook and write down everything the saint had told him that day. He locked it away, never speaking of it again. Years later, when the notebook was finally opened, the words inside made the entire monastery tremble. Many years after Padre Pio's death, the small room where he used to pray was finally opened. The door creaked softly, as if time itself sighed. Everything inside remained untouched. His brown habit, the old Bible worn at the edges, a half-melted candle, and on the wooden desk, a small box covered in dust. On its lid, carved in Latin, were the words, "Secretum inter caelum et terram," the secret between heaven and earth. No one knew where the box had come from, nor when Padre Pio placed it there. Some of the friars remembered him once saying, "When the right time comes, you will know what to do." Decades passed. The monastery grew quieter, and most of those who had known Padre Pio were gone. One young priest, assigned to catalogue the relics in his cell, finally decided to open the box. The lock was rusted and fragile, yet when his fingers touched it, it snapped open on its own. Inside was a small leather notebook, its pages yellowed by age. The first few pages were blank, but near the center, a single page was marked with a tiny rosary. The first line froze everyone who read it. October 3rd, he came. The handwriting that followed was trembling, yet deliberate, as if written in a moment of awe. Padre Pio described how, on that morning, as he prayed, a radiant light filled the room. In the midst of that light appeared a gentle figure, robed in grey, with the same holy wounds upon his hands, and a smile that carried the peace of heaven. Padre Pio wrote, "He spoke without words, yet I understood everything. Between us there was no language, only light and love. He said, 'The time is near. Pray for those who have forgotten heaven.'" Further down the page, his words grew more intense. "I saw souls like small lamps lost in the night, crying out in silence. He told me every prayer, every tear, will become a candle to lead them back to the light." At the bottom of the page, a final, haunting sentence appeared. "He said that 3 days after I leave this world, he will come again, not to take me, but to announce something to the world." No one understood what announce something to the world meant. But what stunned the monastery was the terrifying coincidence that followed. Padre Pio died on September 23rd, and on September 26th, the statue of the Virgin Mary in the chapel began to glow with light for several hours, without candles, without electricity. After reading the last page, the priest closed the notebook. In that instant, a familiar fragrance filled the room, the same sweet scent of roses that had always surrounded Padre Pio during his life. The notebook was later copied and preserved, but the original disappeared soon after. Some believe it remains hidden in the monastery archives. Others claim it was taken to Rome. Yet one final sentence, preserved from the original text, continues to echo across generations, a message believed to be Padre Pio's last. When humanity stops believing in miracles, miracles will stop coming. After the miraculous night when the statue of the Virgin Mary glowed for on September 26, an indescribable stillness covered the monastery of San Giovanni Rotondo. The monks felt it, something invisible, yet so real that it made their hearts tremble. It was as if the air itself was waiting for something sacred to happen. That evening, the caretaker of the monastery entered the chapel to check on the candles. Suddenly, one candle near the altar ignited on its own, even though no one was near it. Then came a soft sound, like a breeze slipping through stone walls. In that breeze, a voice whispered, calm, deep, and sorrowful. He has completed his path. Now mankind must awaken. Terrified, the caretaker fell to his knees. But instead of fear, an overwhelming peace washed over him. When he opened his eyes, the statue's light began to fade. Yet two glistening tears remained on the Virgin's face, so real that they shimmered like dew in the candlelight. News spread quickly. Within days, hundreds of pilgrims gathered at the monastery. Many claimed that as they touched the statue, a fragrance of roses filled the chapel, the same scent that used to surround Padre Pio when he prayed. Others swore they saw faint sparks of light floating in the air, vanishing right after they finished the Hail Mary. Father Michel, one of the oldest monks, wept as he witnessed this. This is not merely a sign, he said softly. It is a reminder that what Padre Pio wrote was not meant only for us, but for the whole world. Soon after, the Vatican sent a team of investigators. They examined the light, the wiring, and the materials of the statue, yet found nothing unusual. No scientific explanation could account for what had happened. One of the scientists, pale and shaken, leaned toward the head priest and whispered, "If this is not a miracle, then it is something science cannot yet comprehend." While they debated, another strange occurrence took place. During a memorial mass for Padre Pio, a young monk leading the hymn suddenly stopped singing, his eyes fixed on the statue of Mary. Trembling, he murmured, "Someone is standing beside her." Everyone turned. The space was empty. Yet on the marble floor before the statue, a faint footprint appeared, as though someone had stood there only moments before, then disappeared into light. Later that night, the caretaker retrieved Padre Pio's old notebook once again. He opened it to the final page, where the saint had written years ago, "He will come again, to deliver his message to the world." Beneath that line was something new, a fresh, delicate handwriting that did not belong to Padre Pio, for simple words were added. "The hour has begun. No one ever discovered who wrote it. No one dared touch the notebook after that. They locked it back in its wooden chest and placed it beneath the altar, where the candlelight flickered over the lid like an eternal flame. From that night on, during every Mass, the monks felt a quiet presence, gentle but powerful, as though Padre Pio still prayed among them. And whenever the incense rose toward the vaulted ceiling, they seemed to hear his voice echo softly through the chapel walls. When mankind stops believing in miracles, miracles will stop coming. Time passed, Yet the story of October 3rd lived on, whispered among the monks like a sacred testament. No one ever truly knew what happened that day between Padre Pio and the saint he mentioned, but all of them felt that it was not an ordinary encounter. It was a meeting where heaven and earth touched for a brief, eternal moment. One autumn afternoon, as the sun poured through the small window of the monastery, Father Michel, the monk who had witnessed the glowing statue years ago, decided to open the old notebook once again. His hands trembled as he turned the fragile pages, until he reached the line where Padre Pio had written, "October 3rd, I saw the light." Beneath that line, there was only emptiness. Yet when he tilted the notebook under the candlelight, faint words appeared, as if written in invisible ink that only revealed itself in darkness. "He came not only to me, but to all who still believe." Father Michel broke into tears. In that moment, he understood. Padre Pio's message was not meant for priests alone, but for every soul struggling in despair. The saint was reminding humanity that even when the world seems lost in darkness, there is always a light waiting for us to return. Since then, every year on October 3rd, the monks gather inside Padre Pio's old chapel to pray. They do not ask for miracles, but for faith. The kind of faith that sustains the heart in silence. During these nights of prayer, many have claimed to hear the gentle sound of rosary beads moving, though no one was holding them. Others have seen a faint brown shadow, the shape of a friar's robe, gliding softly through the corridor before fading into the mist of incense. One pilgrim, an old man, once shared that when he visited Padre Pio's tomb in 1997, he was suddenly surrounded by the fragrance of roses. He prayed quietly, "If you are still here, Padre, please give me a sign." At that very moment, a breeze swept through the chapel, and a drop of wax fell from the candle, forming a small heart on the stone floor. The old man wept, certain that heaven had just whispered back. Today, many believe Padre Pio's message about October 3rd was a prophecy, a gentle warning that humanity must prepare its heart, not for an apocalyptic event, but for a divine encounter that may happen in silence, when we least expect it. A young friar once prayed before the same statue that had glowed long ago and whispered, "I can feel Padre Pio here, praying with us and for us all." Perhaps that is exactly what Padre Pio wanted to leave behind. Not fear, not mystery, but a living faith. A faith that reminds us to stay humble, to love, and to trust that even in our darkest nights, heaven is closer than we think. If you are watching this right now, maybe it is not by chance. Maybe Padre Pio is reaching out to you to tell you that he is still praying for you. Wherever you are, take a moment, close your eyes, whisper a small prayer from your heart, and perhaps, in that silence, you will feel his presence, gentle, warm, and real. If you believe that miracles still happen, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel, so together we can share the message of faith and hope to more hearts around the world. Because who knows, you might be the one to witness the next miracle.